Hi, everyone, and welcome aboard. Thank you very much for joining us for Trading Buddies on this Monday, the 29th day of July, 2024, the last Trading Buddies for 4 weeks, I think it is, whilst Ash and I go on a little break, which we normally do at this time of year. And we've extended just a little bit this year from 2 weeks to 4 weeks because I'll be traveling overseas and Ash is obviously away as well. So, that said, let's get started and have a look at gold. Got to say, my rules would have cost some money last week on gold if you were trading the breakout, that is, as we go into London session, as we seek to do. And the reason for that is because I wouldn't have been in 3 of the 4 trades that would have been winners, or maybe been four out of the 5 trades. I'm not sure. I'll double check that in just a bit. That rule I have about not entering when price is near the top or bottom of the range as we go into London session is the culprit that I'm talking about. I'm not sure I'll change that rule, to be honest, but we might have a good look at it. I'm not promising today, but maybe it's worthy of consideration. All right, let's isolate the range for today, where we have a high here and a low of the same bar, which is somewhat interesting. So there's our high. And I should have a low bar somewhere. Here we are. And currently we're in a good spot. As I was saying, I don't like to enter when price is near this line or near that line. The idea for those of you here for the first time, of course, and I don't see too many in the room, but on YouTube and Facebook or wherever we're going, that may not be the case. So we're trying to find a breakout of the high and the low of the Asia session range, not and or the low of the Asia session range. Now, how we manage that is we put a buy order above the high of the range and a sell order below the low of the range. We use each of the entries as a stop loss for the other. In other words, if we enter here, our stop loss will long here, sorry, our stop loss will be below this red line. And if we enter short here, the stop loss will be above the high of this candle, which of course is that red line. So it really only matters to me if we're near the top or the bottom of the range as we enter this order. The reason I don't like to be near the bottom of the range or the top of the range is because London session often opens with a little bit of a flurry, and it could go in the opposite direction, and that's not unusual for price in as London session opens. So I like it to be in the middle so we can withstand that little bit of pressure one way and then a drop the other. As far as risk to reward is concerned, today we've got a risk of around about $14. Our reward, if we were to use the pivots, and DR2 by the look of it, is the pivot that we would use for first profit or for profit, is about, what did I say, $14? Yep. Is about not even 10. That's not too bad. And the daily pivot would be in the opposite direction, and that's about 10 as well. So I'm happy to take that position. And now's the time we need to think about it. I think we're far enough away from the bottom to take this position. So let's do it. We will buy. And I must add, guys, if you're following this, please do it very, very small risk because it is a risky trade. Simple as that. So I'm just going to use a very, very small risk. The buy will be at the high of this bar plus a little bit, plus the spreads, basically. 2402.47. We'll just go with 2403 as our entry. 2403.00. Our stop loss will be the low of the candle, rounded down. 2388.63. We'll go 2388 for that. 2388.00. And our take profit level will be, as I said, at DR2, and that is at 2412. So 2412.00. It is a buy stop at that level. Order placed. We will sell below this bar, pretty much where our stop loss is, well, exactly where our stop loss is for the buy. And that was 2412, if my, no, 2188, my memory serves me correctly. And often it doesn't these days. I used to be pretty good with that. I used to remind the elephants. But these days, as old as I'm getting, it seems that that's no longer the case. So this will be a pending order also. And it will be a sell stop at 2388. I'll just double check that. I think that was right. Yep. The stop loss will be the same as the entry for the long, which was 2403. 2403. And the take profit for this one will be at the daily pivot, which is at 2378. $2378.00. Okay. So we now have, again, for those of you new, and welcome to those of you who aren't familiar with this, we will, if triggered short, cancel our buy order, and if triggered, I'll get that out, triggered long, we will cancel our short order. So in other words, one of these entries cancels the other. So again, very, very small risk on this, guys, but I do think we've got an opportunity here today to get a little bit of money out of that one. As I said last week, had you followed my rules for this, you would be very disappointed because, and I'll show you why, Friday would have been an outright winner, no question, because there's the high of the range, never got near it. The low of the range, which is the 9 o'clock bar, which is that one there, yes, was very, very near to the bar that we triggered on is the 9 o'clock, which was very, very near to the low of the range. And that is why I would not have entered there. So you would have missed that had you been following my rules. This one here, the 9 o'clock bar is there. Again, you were too close to the high of the range to trade. It would have been a winner. With this one, that bar there is the low of the range. Again, you couldn't have entered there under my rules, and you would have missed that winner as well. My goodness me, my rules sucked this last week by the look of it. And this one here, the low of the range is the 9 o'clock bar, and again, couldn't have entered on that, and that would have been an outright winner. Well, where are we up to? That was Monday. My goodness. I hang my head because it would have been a fantastic week had you not followed my rules. You can make your own rules, of course, but I'll stick with mine until proven over a period of time that doesn't work. Righto, so we're in both orders this week on the Monday, which, as I said earlier I think I said earlier, those of you here for the first time, you're here for one day only because we're taking a week off, but not a week off, we're taking a month off as of tomorrow. And the next show won't be until the first week, which I think is the 2nd of September. So there'll be a break from this day until the 2nd of September. When Ash will be back with you, I won't be able to be back. I'll still be traveling. And I'll be buggered by the time I get back the next day, I can assure you. Righto. Now, what have I got this week?
I have a trade,
got an
mate.
order for you. I've got two. Oh, go, mate.
How you
How you
doing, all
doing?
right? Yeah, doing good.
I'm going
Um,
well.
I've
Let's
I've
see
I've
the
got a
trade.
trade. Yeah, let's have a look. Um, so it is for a pound CAD short. And I've just got in on this thing here, but if you look at it, it's an interesting one because it's got quite a cool little pattern here. Look at that Batman's ears going on. So it is the wings.
Yeah.
Batman's ears. There's the it's a Head and Shoulders, which of course everybody knows is my favorite pattern, I think. But if you don't, it is my favorite pattern to trade. There is the left shoulder, the head, and the right shoulder there. The neckline looks like it's along here, and measuring the shoulders to the neckline, we're going to get a measured move of the Head and Shoulders, which leads us down to come down here, you. Okay, can't move that one. Doesn't matter. I will move this instead. Head and Shoulders, which leads us to there's our bubbles, so it leads us to here. So there's a first take profit, which looks like right on the edge of the current range. I'm looking to see if we can get a little bit lower ultimately, and I'll go into that in a moment. But the price, but on the technicals, the other sort of thing that I quite like about this is that we're on a 4 hour chart right now, and if we draw this trend line up here, we are basically sort of retesting the break of that trend line, and these are my favorite types of Head and Shoulders patterns. When I look for Head and Shoulders, I find that they are more successful when the right shoulder is on a trend line. It's on a trend line break, so that there's a rally into the head, then there's a break and retest of the trend line. I really like these because it's got a bit of confluence about it rather than just having a Head and Shoulders that is in isolation. The hourly chart is also showing us that we do have a bit of a break along here, which is better seen probably on the 15 because you got the touch there, and there's you could probably just shove that up there as well. Which is why I took it. When I saw the 15-minute chart, it was the trigger for me. I'm probably going to use that. It was the trigger for me. So selling off there, and we'll see how far we get down. Stops can just go at the high of the shoulder. Ultimately, they can come up into this area here, which actually would probably make the target around about a 3 to 1 to that particular point. If we can get all the way down here, then we're looking at something like looks like a 6.5 to 1 if we can get right the way down. But a 2 to 3 to 1 to sort of like get from this point to this point with a stop at this area above this bar here. I think that is probably a decent way to look at it, because then you can take profit. You can take profit in these areas and have a decent trade, or you can choose to close half the position and maybe even move stops to break even. It won't really matter at that point. So talking about why I like the lower line, um, and it's really to do with the COT data. The COT data very, very strong. Now the seasonals aren't good for the Canadian dollar, which is disappointing, and a bit more of a concern. But equally, they're not particularly good on the pound either. I would have gone for the dollar CAD, but the seasonals are actually okay for the dollar. Actually, they're not that good. They're not that good on the dollar either. But all of them, they all tend to suffer this week mainly against the yen. So the yen tends to sort of like get into a nice seasonal kind of flow for the next week and right into the following month. The pound is slightly worse than the Canadian dollar for this week on the seasonals, but as I say, it's really about the COT data. The COT data is very strong for the CAD and it's very weak for the pound. Now it doesn't mean that we've got a buy signal necessarily when I look at the COT data like that. But what it is saying is that the traders on the COT report are suggesting that the risk to the pound is to the downside. They're not saying when, they're not saying where, they're not saying anything to do with a price point target. But what they are saying is that this particular point has got to the point where it's so overvalued on the pound that the risk is now to the downside. And if you were to look at the pound versus a lot of these, you look at these on longer term timeframes. This is a weekly
Had a
on
good
the
trot, the pound the last month or so, isn't it? Really,
it's had a really good run, mate. Yeah, it's had a really good run. That's against the Kiwi, that's against the dollar as well. At the higher end on a weekly chart. So there is some risk, I think, for the pound. There's risk that that the pound is a bit overvalued, and the Canadian dollar is quite the opposite. The risk is to the upside on the Canadian dollar. And if you sort of have a look at the CAD, you look at that. This is the CAD Swiss. If I can find my CAD dollar, if I can move my Zoom thing out of the way. There we go. Dollar CAD, where are you? Well, that was a CAD Sing. There's the CAD Swiss. Can't find my dollar CAD right now, but I think you kind of hopefully get there is. Dollar CAD, this is high, so that means that the CAD is low. So the risk for the CAD is in the opposite direction. Now, if you build on top of that the first week of next month, so potentially sometime this week, it might be next week, there is a rate decision from the Bank of England, and data suggests that rate decision is going to point to a lowering of interest rates. There's of course a little bit of contention from either side of the fence, but inflation has hit 2% 2 months consecutively, and aside from a few kind of indications of slowdown, the UK economy is okay, but it's stalling a bit as the global economy is, and interest rates are probably a little bit high and a bit restrictive at this stage. So a reduction of interest rates is likely. That should push the pound down a little bit. So that's the case, mate, for me, is that the price action is good. We've seen that the head and shoulders, we've seen the kind of break of the 4 hour. We've seen that the pound is probably a bit overvalued on price. It's a bit the CAD is a bit undervalued on price. COT data suggests the same. The risk is in the opposite direction for both of them, and you've got this interest rate potential cut coming in a week or so. So I think that there's enough evidence to suggest that the pound CAD is a decent enough trade. So that's why the short is on. That's the call for this week, mate.
Mate, no problem at all with the pound being weak. I've got an order short pound Swissy, which I will share very shortly.
Yeah, let's have a look.
In fact, I might as well do that now, yeah?
Yeah, let's have a look, mate. Yeah, the pound Swissy is an interesting one. Actually, COT data for the Swiss franc is also pretty strong. Come off a little bit over the last week, but it's still pretty strong. I mean, it was extremely strong. It's been extremely strong for a number of weeks. So a little bit of I guess an assumption of risk is slightly dampening is natural, but it's still very, very strong. They're still pretty bullish on the Swiss franc when it comes down to the COT report.
Yeah, market sentiment's been interesting. A couple of weeks ago, I was dead certain that we'd go risk off because of the Trump shooting, and whether it was because of the Trump shooting or not, I think the market did switch to risk off pretty swiftly after that. But I'm not so sure this week whether we're going to get a change of mood or whether that's going to continue. So I'm not 100% sure. But if that is the case, then the Swissy should do okay. And I think pound Swissy for me is the one. The only issue I had with it, and you can see I don't normally have all these lines on my chart, but they all seem to finish at the same point, or very, very close to the same point, which is where I think pound Swissy becomes a very, very good price to sell. I've got it under here at the moment, but if it were to reach here, I think it's a great option to sell it from here, which is around about the 142 mark, so 1.42. Sorry, 1.142 would be the mark, not 1.12 or whatever I said. 1.1420, I think, is the really good price.
Yeah,
on
do you know
pound
what as
versus
well,
the
mate? I mean,
Swissy.
that's
If we don't,
it's
yeah,
it's an interesting one, isn't it? Because that's an M topping pattern as well. Difficult to actually see it, but there's an M topping pattern there which starts on the 5th
mhm.
of April. So you got those kind of double top, those two peaks up there making that double top. So that does look negative, and it hasn't yet on this third push tested that neckline. There's some downside potential, I think, with this one. I agree with you on it actually, and that level that you're talking about, fantastic horizontal line as well as
Here,
all those trend lines. Yeah, it's just a tidy area, isn't it? But if we can get a push
it
to
is.
that point, and that's what you'd be looking for, I guess, wouldn't you? You want the price, and the price looks like it should be there. It'd be a shame if it kind of turned here already. But if the price can get to there, then I think it would be really attractive.
Yeah, I agree, and that's why I've got all these lines on the chart. I just can't ignore that area. And if we do get the opportunity, I think, as I said, that's the best place to sell it.
Yeah.
That level there, that 114.20, is probably more relevant on a longer term than it is on the shorter term. You can see how many times in 2024 that level's been rejected 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7 times. It was rejected before it actually broke. Come back underneath it and broke it again. But this is the key for me, the lower high here. So it couldn't keep going. And now we're back under that level. I think that level retested, as we've just said, is an absolute seller for me. Really, really like it. As far as rewards concerned, and that's why I'm not really too concerned about where I've got my entry. I think the reward is potentially down here, so it's a long, long way from where we are now. That's why I've got my order here. If you want to follow it, it's actually underneath this seller bar, and this does look to me like a phase one, phase two. I'm looking for phase three here. I've got my first profit at that support level. I don't know that I'll take too much. I'll take a third off at that point. If you want to follow it, the entry's at 1.1292. The stop loss, I'm not going to head 143 pips to that. I'll just go and have a look. 1.4350 is my stop loss. And I'm just going to reduce my risk at 1.1223. So not terribly sexy as a TP1, but that's not where the profit is for me. The profit's down here. So that's where I'll look to take some real money out of the market on pound versus the Swissy. Now, those of you who were here last week will know that I placed my trade of the week, I think it was euro versus the dollar as a short. Those of you who don't know, I'm pretty much end of day trader and have been for the last 2 years, I suppose, because of my time constraints. I can't really trade the smaller time frames. So I'm trading things that I call game changers. They're key reversal bars. This was one of them last week. I think there were about, well, I can tell you 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7 game changer bars. The other 6 game changer bars were fantastic. This one has been the slowest of the lot. So I picked the wrong one to trade, but it looked pretty good to me. We're still in that trade and doing absolutely nothing after pretty much a week. It's just sitting there waiting to do something. What I actually did, and you guys won't be aware of this, I placed an alternate long here, trying to do what? Trying to hedge that position. I've got my stop loss fairly tight on that. That's now been taken out for a small loss, so I will now need that to go to, well, about the bottom of that candle to get square on this one. I'm hoping that's going to be the case. Just so I bring you up to date with that one. For those of you who were here last week. Have I got another trade? No, I don't think I do. I think I'm up to date on that. Right, let's now have a look at this, which is the indexes on the currencies. I struggled to find a favorite here today. when I was doing my analysis, I look at these every week just to see if there's a standout, and really I couldn't find one. The dollar, and this is all technical stuff, it's got nothing to do with fundamentals. Technically, we are at a resistance level, and we've also broken through a support level, suggesting to me that there's probably downside to come on the dollar, but I don't see it right now. What I do see right now is a need to retest the backside of that trend line. But ultimately, I see us way down here because we've got that lovely confluence area, and it is trading really a range back to here on the dollar index. I don't know what drives that. We've got the Fed this week, actually. We've got the Fed this week and an FP, as I understand it. Is that right? Yeah, that's right.
Yeah, do you
So
know,
we've got double
it's
whammy.
interesting, really, because we've seen some economic weakness coming out of the United States, and then sort of kind of turn around again and hold firm on some other numbers. But there is no question that the Fed are making more and more noises for the rate cut. So that would be enough to kind of send the dollar, after being so bought, to the downside. You know, how far it comes down, I don't know. I don't know what that reduction would be in percentage terms, but what are we on, 104? 104 down to 101?
Yeah, it's about, let's call it 2.5%.
Call it 2.5%. Yeah, reduction in the dollar. I mean, it's quite a big move over a short period, but over a longer period, and you know, they're talking about the fall being, you know, the start of a cutting. I don't know how much of a cycle it's going to be, but certainly sort of a cut in kind of late summer, early fall, in September. That should drive the dollar lower. So it looks like it's there. As I say, mate, some of the data is looking a little bit tepid coming out of the United States at the minute, without being too extreme. And I think they're going to want to get out in front of that.
And what makes that difficult from a fundamental aspect is the market has had a very non-appetite, if you like, for risk, which of course is rather dollar strength. You would imagine. We haven't really seen that. As I said a couple of weeks ago, I thought that the Trump shooting would mean risk off, and that should mean a rising US dollar. That's all we've seen. It was a half a bark, if you like. There's certainly no bite in that at the moment. So I'm completely unconvinced that this is going either way. But I do see the backside of this trend line as a propulsion for downside here. So Fed's going to make that way. It's got nothing to do ultimately this week with technicals, but I can imagine that we go here before we go there. We'll see.
Yeah.
Aussie will be obviously affected, as all these currencies will, by what the Fed says and what the NFP number is as well. Those two things
CPI
combined this week are going to dictate. Yeah, CPI on the Aussie too.
CPI on the Aussie this week, yeah.
Is that what you mean?
Yeah.
Yeah. Look, I think that number on Wednesday, I think, is the CPI on the Aussie. That number is critical, because if that number is equal to or higher than the previous print on the CPI for quarter, it's both quarterly and yearly, that they're going to report this week. The monthly CPI figure for the Aussie last month was an increase. If that's the case on the quarterly, and more importantly, the yearly, the Aussie will just skyrocket, in my humble opinion, because that means that, in my opinion, the RBA, who are already talking interest rate rises, will think very, very seriously about hiking the Aussie next month, which is only a week or so away. So I think that number for the Aussie, that print, whatever it is on Wednesday, is super critical for the direction of the Aussie. And I know the Aussie, you were telling me last week that August is a shocking month for the Aussie and commodity currencies in general, I think. So that will be a bit of a switcheroo if that's the case. If the print is negative, in other words, if inflation's coming down on a quarterly and yearly basis, for Australia, then I think this continues to sell off the Aussie. So
You know,
crucial, absolutely crucial in my humble
I,
opinion.
I'll tell you what's interesting as well. You know, with the seasonal sort of kind of patterns, because the Aussie, you know, for the reasons that you're suggesting, the very next day, actually, the Bank of England are going to be voting on their next rate decision. And if the Bank of England lower interest rates after an Australian CPI data has come out hot, that would suggest that the pound Aussie would also be a short. You know, it sounds like the Aussie would
Yeah,
be a decent candidate. But what's interesting about the seasonals is that quite often the seasonal move happens out of sync with what just out of sync, not completely. You can't say there's a seasonal move in August and in August and it happens in January, but you can say that a few weeks before the move sort of like starts quicker than it historically has, and therefore will end faster than it normally would as well. So even though August does tend to be a negative month, because of what we've seen over the last couple of weeks, it's possible that the downside runs out of steam a bit quicker. And so that would support some potential longs in the Aussie against other things. Nice inverted head and shoulders going on there as well. I mean, I don't know whether that's it might be. Oh, it looks like it's out of balance, that inverted head and shoulders, but it might well be there. Lots of tails there, isn't there? I mean,
yeah. Look, we've been following these tails, and that's why
yeah,
I've been bullish the Aussie for so long.
yeah, yeah,
These two in particular, you know, that to me is by the Aussie real quick, but it hasn't really gone too far. But every time it's tried to sell off, bang, 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 it's rallied.
yeah,
This one's a little more serious by the look of it, and that's the trick. But three things this week are going to turn that around, or continue it down here. And we've mentioned the three of them: the CPI figures on the Aussie, the Fed, and the NFP number. So this is not going to be here at the end of the week, I can assure you.
hmm.
Where it's going to be depends on those numbers entirely.
Yeah,
CAD not so different, except the CAD's at a very strong support level, very strong support level. So
yeah,
I would anticipate that there'll be some profit taking coming on the CAD this week. That would be my assessment. The pound coming off, we suggested that might be the case, and the backside of this trade line looks to be a target. So I'm a seller of the pound. The Swissy is interesting. It has closed above this trend line, barely came off its high, obviously, last week, as the market did have no appetite for risk, but then that tempered somewhat. I still think this is potentially a stronger conveyance than certainly the commodity currencies. And I think maybe the Kiwi versus this is a sell, or this versus the Kiwi is a buy, whichever way you want to look at that. Speaking of the Kiwi, my goodness me, how much strife is
yeah.
it in? It just
Big trouble, isn't
really,
it? I mean,
really,
closing
really
below
free.
those levels, it just looks disastrous for the Kiwi,
It does, absolutely does. Look,
and it's just
maybe
not
there's some
supported
profit
anywhere.
taking back to this level here. No,
You know, I was
no,
looking at the
there's
COT
nothing to suggest.
the COT data as well, just to see whether you know the speculators and traders on the COT report were quite keen for it down here, you know, because of the price point, but they're not. They're not
Mm-hmm.
suggesting that the risk is to the upside at this stage at all. So the Kiwis in all sorts of trouble. Of course, that could change, you know, but it's very unlikely we just see a spring to the upside from here, in accordance with data and seasonal data as well, and fundamentals. To be fair, I mean,
Yeah,
nothing is just kind of is pointing to a spring higher, maybe a bottoming out. We might see a bit of a boost if CPI data comes in hot from Australia. That might the Kiwi might sort of tag a ride on that for a little while. Um, but it's got work to do now to kind of get back into safe territory.
yeah, you can see it pulling back to here, maybe, but after that, look out.
Yeah.
Now the yen, my goodness me,
Mm.
look at it go. We've um, we've of course been speculating for a long, long time that there'll be some buying coming in sooner or later, and over the last 4 weeks, we have seen that very, very difficult to get into it. in terms of trading it, because it just goes so fast. And we've noted all along that when it goes, it's going to go fast, and it certainly has. I think this week we've seen a little bit of a pullback. So if you still fancy this as a buy, and I think you're entitled to be that way now, there is now a high target for it, and that's something that I think is significant, coincides with this level here. I don't know how much is I want to buy it this week, but if I do get a decent retracement, and I think we have had reasonable retracements, I think yen is still a buy. The euro, up, down, not real sure, but again, the backside of this trend line looks to be appealing. So I'd be a seller of the euro rather than a buyer, frankly. Summarizing all that, I think yen is probably still the strongest. Am I favouring anything else? Not really. I think the commodity currencies are still in trouble. I think the pound's got a problem. Well, not so much a problem, but it's overbought, needs to sell off a bit. Really, I'm not that fussed on anything, to be fair. Especially when I've got to say the yen's the strongest currency on the board. That seems to be a little bit hard to do. So I've settled on pound versus the Swissy. As I said, the short is here, but I'd much prefer to sell it from here. We'll see how that pans out. Apart from that, I ain't got too much, mate, to be honest.
Oh, I mean, I'm liking it. I'm liking it. That was a decent look around the indexes, and I think that looks even better for the pound CAD as well, which is of course the one that I've chosen, and I guess it's probably suggesting that the pound is potentially going to be weak across the board, which matches the data, which is what we kind of want to see when we're looking to get into trades. So looks pretty positive to me, mate. I think that's a decent enough place to finish, unless anybody's got anything, of course. Anybody in the room wants to throw their hat in the ring and suggest any trades, or if they even want us to look at any trades or look at the data for some currencies, then that will be grand. But if not, then I guess we can leave it there until the 2nd of September.
Oh my goodness me! It sounds like a holiday. Ooh, oh no, I was just about to burst into song, but I remembered.
Was it
Paul's
Madonna?
away and he doesn't want emails from you. Could have been. Not sure. So, yeah, guys, we've given you our thoughts. If you've got any, then please let us know. We're more than happy to share ours. If you're happy to share yours, then fair enough. We'd like to look at that. If not, as Ash says, you're off tomorrow, mate.
Yeah, off to Croatia tomorrow, where it's 40 degrees near enough, which is actually not that appealing, I've got to say. It's actually really nice over here now. I kind of wish, I don't know why we go away in the summer. It makes no sense whatsoever. It's the worst time to go because it's really nice over here in the summer. And it's really it's the only time that the UK is really nice. The rest of the time it's just too wet, it's too cold, and it's just rubbish. But and I guess it depends on what kind of temperature you like. But I don't like anything over, really, I don't really like anything over 25, but I can handle up to 30. And we're at 27 today, and it's kind of, we got a week of like bouncing between kind of 30 degrees and the mid 20s. And that's perfect, So I don't know why I'm going, but tickets are booked. So next year won't happen though. I'm going to change tack and maybe go away in the winter somewhere.
Well, Tassie's good in your winter, mate.
Yeah,
20,
Tassie, I'll come and see you.
25 tops. Yeah, come and see me.
That'd be beautiful.
I'm off in for actually. We're headed towards, where are we going? I don't know. I just jumped. My wife says we're going there, so we go there. We're going America, Canada, Alaska.
Oh,
I'm not sure if we're going to Alaska, but yeah, we're doing that part of the world. Haven't done that before. For me, that's horrendous because I was sitting on a plane for 14 or 15 hours. You know what that's like. I hate it.
That's
just
the worst
can't
bit.
stand it.
Yeah, I don't like planes. Very, very boring.
So looks like I've got to have 2 nights of no sleep before we go.
Yeah.
3 rums when I get on board, and that should do me for 8 hours at least. We'll see. We'll see
Should
how
be
we go.
dandy. Love the plan.
I don't see a question in the box or an idea. So guess what that means? We're out of here, guys. Thanks so much for being our trading buddies for the last 6, 7 months, whatever it is. We will be back in a month. I think it's the 2nd of September when Ash will be back with you.
Yeah.
As I said, I'll still be traveling, but we will catch up the following week. Mate, have a wonderful time. And if you can do that, drop in on Paris on your way through.
Well, I'm flying. I'll see if the pilot wants to stop there for a bit. Oh, you mean for the Olympics? I'm loving the Olympics already.
Oh, so am I. I'm so tired. Yeah. It's crazy because it's a dreadful time here because all of our stuff's pretty much between midnight and 3 a.m. All the good stuff.
Aussie keeps winning everything there, don't they?
Well, that's always the case in the first week of the Olympics. It goes downhill very quickly after that because we're very strong in swimming and all the water sports. And as soon as the water sports go, no, it's back to normal.
Yeah. Still though, mate, I love it. I mean, it's,
all right, let's get out of here.
To be good in an area is good enough. I think we haven't got any goals yet, so I'm not sure if we'll catch you. We'll see.
Yeah, you probably will. Once you get to track and field, you've probably got a far better chance. We will see. All right, those of you who are registered in my Q&A, there will be Q&A this week and next week, and I think the week after that, because I don't go away for a couple of weeks. But thereafter, there will be 3 weeks off. Guys, that's it. We'll catch you next month. I hope you stay safe, and I hope you have a profitable time over the next month. We will catch you in September. See you soon, mate.
You too, buddy.